Welcome to Get Licensed to Build. This is a free online workshop for those who want to get their California contractor's license. Our goal this morning is to go through all the parts of the license application and give you practical tips to help you complete it correctly, and to give you every opportunity to demonstrate your experience and qualifications to get your California contractor's license. We will also help get you ready for your licensing exams and give you a link to a video that shows you exactly what to expect on your test day. Today's webcast is presented by the Contractor State Licensing Board, the government agency responsible for regulating the California's construction industry. I'm Ronald James from CSLB License Verification Unit at CSLB. Joining us is Dana D'Onofrio from CSLB's License Verification Unit. Good morning.
Good morning. CSLB is overseen by a 15-member board that directs administrative policy for our operations. Our board is made up of 10 public members, including one labor representative, one local building official, and one representative of a statewide senior citizen organization, and 5 contractors. Appointments are made by the governor and the state legislature.
Please note, CSLB authorized test centers are open. It is recommended that applicants wear masks on test day. Before arriving for your test, check and follow your local COVID-19 mask guidance. If you are watching right now on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live and want to ask questions, you'll need to join us on Webex. There's a banner with a link on the top of our homepage, www.cslb.ca.gov. That is also where you can download this presentation to follow along. The presentation file includes clickable bonus links that appear on slides throughout this workshop. We're going to present a lot of information today, so don't worry if you don't get it all. We will archive the video of this workshop and put it on our YouTube channel so you can go back and watch again. To ask a question on Webex, use the Q&A feature, not the chat feature, on the bottom right of your screen. Make sure you send your questions to all panelists. Finally, we tend to get a lot of questions during these workshops on how you document your work experience and what credit you can get for your education or military service. Those questions are fine, but we will ask that you wait to send us those questions until after you see that part of the workshop. We will go through your questions at the end of our presentation, which should last about 45 minutes.
The information obtained during this webcast is not, nor is intended to be legal advice. While this webcast contains general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license applications, it does not contain definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines communicated or discussed during the webcast are for informational purposes only. If you have questions about the application of the law for specific situations, you should contact an attorney who is familiar with California construction law or review the 2022 edition of the CSLB publication, California Contractors License Law and Reference Book. You can download it for free on the CSLB website or purchase it directly from the publisher, LexisNexis. There are links for both at the bottom of the screen.
Here's a list of what we're going to cover today. We will take you through the process of applying for your California contractor's license. First, who needs a license? Why get a contractor's license? The minimum qualifications you'll need to get a license and what credits you might qualify for. The types of business entities, the different CSLB license classifications, including our new B2 residential remodeling classification. We will spend a lot of time giving you tips on how to help fill out your applications, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications. Fingerprint requirements for a criminal background check. We will help you exams you will need to pass in order to get your license. And finally, the other things you'll need to have in place before your license is issued, things like a bond and insurance.
First, we'll take a look at who needs a license. Here in California, a state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more. That total includes both labor and materials. The law doesn't let you break down a project into 499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you cannot charge an hourly rate to get around the $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours for the job totals $500 or more, you need a contractor's license. So what is the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the state's Business and Professions Code. In this case, it's section 7026.1. We've got a link to the code at the top of the page if you download the presentation. I'll read the entire code, but pay special attention to the part we underlined. A contractor is any person, consultant to an owner-builder, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation, or company who or which undertakes, offers to undertake, purports to have the capacity to undertake, or submits a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part thereof. In other words, you don't have to do the work to break the law. You must have a contractor's license just to advertise that you can do the construction work, or even to give a bid for a construction job if the bid totals $500 or more.
So you may be asking yourself, why should I get a license? Here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows you've taken the steps to get licensed and you're serious about your career choice. It allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work you do. There is value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you a legal option if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do the work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanics lien laws. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught face a first offense sentence up to 6 months in jail and or a $5,000 fine and potential administrative fines anywhere between $200 to $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license when one is required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license. Also, you do not have to go to a license preparation school to get your contractor's license.
So, what do you need to get your license? First, it is important to understand that CSLB does not license individuals. We license companies or businesses, also called entities. Many entities are one-person operations, but know that every entity, even a one-person operation, must have a qualifier. That's someone who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operations of the company. Here's a short list of minimum qualifications you will need. You must be at least 18 years old. You must have either a valid Social Security number or valid Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, or ITIN. You can qualify the license in one of two ways. First, you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years experience within the last 10 years as a journey person, foreperson, supervising employee, or contractor in the trade being applied for. Or you can also get a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. We will spend a lot of time talking about how you can demonstrate your experience on your application in a few minutes.
It may be possible for you to substitute your education, technical training, apprenticeship training for some of the required experience. We tend to get a lot of questions on this. First, CSLB cannot prejudge your experience. Due to the number of applications we receive and process every month, we don't have the staff time that would be needed to prejudge your experience. We can only review your documents after you apply for your license. Next, to get education credit, the coursework must be directly related to the work you will be doing as a contractor. Your education cannot be substituted for more than 3 years or 36 months of the required experience, meaning you will need at least 1 year of practical experience if you get the full 36 months of education credit. To apply for education credit, you must provide CSLB with written documentation. That means a copy of any apprenticeship completion certificates you earned, or get official technical school or college transcripts. Have the transcripts mailed to you. Do not open the envelope. Leave it sealed and include it with your CSLB application packet. Note that high school courses will not earn you any credit toward your contractor's license.
If you're looking to get education credit to meet the 4 years or 48 months of experience, you'll need to get your transcripts first. This is the most important slide of this entire workshop. This is the kind of credit you can expect to receive for your education. Note that for some areas, we are only giving you averages. You will see that your credit will be determined on a case-by-case basis. We're not going to be able to give you any more guidance than what you see on this slide. So our best advice is do not rely on the combination of your experience and education credits to barely hit the 4-year experience mark. There is always the real possibility you will not get as much education credit as you are hoping. Let's go through the chart from the most credit you can get to the least. The most education credit you can get is for a Bachelor of Science degree in construction management. That degree will get you the full 36 months of credit. Next is a master's or bachelor's degree in business or a law degree. Any one of those will get you 24 months of credit. An associate in science degree in construction management will get you 18 months credit. A bachelor's degree in some other major will get you an average of 18 months credit. An associate degree in a major besides construction management will get you an average of 6 months credit. Credit for individual college classes are given on a case-by-case basis, usually a maximum of 6 months credit. Apprenticeships completion certificates will get you 24 to 36 months, depending on the classification of the program. For example, a sheet metal worker's apprenticeship can get you 24 months credit for the C20 HVAC and C43 sheet metal classifications only. A lineman apprenticeship gets you 36 months in C7 low voltage or C10 electrical classifications only. If you have transcripts for other technical training you've taken, you might be able to get some minimal credit as well. Again, don't use your education credit to try and squeak by the 4-year or 48-month requirement.
If you served in the military, some of that service might count as well. On the bottom of the page, you'll see a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program where you can learn more. The license qualifier also must pass 2 different exams, both taken on a computer at one of CSLB's authorized test centers. One exam is on California business law. The other is on the specific trade covered by the license. We also have limited specialty license, which we will discuss later. Those licenses only require the qualifier to take the law and business exam. As we mentioned, the qualifier is the one who must take and pass the required exams to qualify for a waiver or qualify for a waiver. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the waiver, only to note that you might be able to request a waiver from taking one or both exams in very specific situations. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We've included a bonus link at the bottom of the page. The qualifier must also undergo criminal background check. We will go more in depth on that in a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in a position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They are also responsible for all workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you're trying to get a B general building contractor's license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as the project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
The next thing you're going to need to determine before applying for your license is which type of entity your business will be. There are 4 types. First is a sole ownership, where the owner or responsible managing employee may serve as the license qualifier. Just about 2/3 of the contracting businesses in California are sole ownerships. Second, a corporation, where either of the current officers designated as a responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. Just under 1/3 of our licensees are corporations. A distant third is a partnership, where either of the general partners or a responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. That's 2% of our licensees. Finally, a limited liability company or LLC, responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, sponsor, or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. About 1.5%, 1.5% of California construction companies are LLCs.
Now let's talk about license classifications. A contractor's license can include multiple classifications, although you must select one when filing your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under 3 distinct categories. There's a bonus link to our classification list at the bottom of the screen. First is Class A, or General Engineering Contractors. These are contractors who deal with fixed works that require specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones who build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next is Class B, or General Building Contractors. This is the largest class of contractors in California, with more than 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires as part of its construction at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry unless the prime contract requires at least 2 unrelated building trades other than framing or carpentry. There is no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final class is C, or Specialty Contractors. These licenses are for construction work that requires special skills and whose principal contracting business involves the use of specialized building trades or crafts. Examples from this class include C10 Electrical Contractors, C20 HVAC Contractors, C27 Landscaping Contractors, C36 Plumbing Contractors, C39 Roofing Contractors, C46 Solar Contractors, and C53 Swimming Pool Contractors, just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes under the C61 classification. These include the C61/D34 prefabricated equipment class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
CSLB's newest licensing classification is called the B2 Residential Remodeling Classification. The B2 allows contractors who do not have structural framing experience to get a license with CSLB. Here's what interested applicants need to know. B2 license holders must engage in 3 or more trades or crafts on a project. B2 licensees also are limited to working on existing residential wood frame structures. There are some things B2 license holders cannot do. They cannot make structural alterations to load-bearing partitions and walls. They cannot install or extend electrical or plumbing systems. They can make modifications to existing systems, for example, install recessed lighting, or alter plumbing for 2 shower heads. B2 licensees also cannot install or replace an HVAC system. Like all other CSLB licensees, B2 applicants/licensees must comply with CSLB experience, examination, license bond, and workers' compensation insurance requirements. If you have more questions about the B2 license, email the licensing division at licensing@cslb.ca.gov.
When you are ready to apply for a license, here are the 2 forms you will need. On the left is the license application. On the right is the certification of work experience. You can get these forms on the CSLB website. There is a bonus link on the left side of the page, so be sure to download this presentation. We will give you a closer look at the different sections of these forms a little later.
Okay, now let's break down the steps of the application process. First, identify who will be the qualifier for your license. That person will be responsible for exercising direct supervision and control of the company. If you're an RME or responsible managing employee as your qualifier, determine if he or she can qualify for exam waiver. Be aware of companies you pay to connect you with a licensed qualifier. In some cases, these qualifiers are in a different part of the state and cannot exercise the direct supervision needed, or they aren't willing or don't understand their role as a qualifier. Next, make sure you complete the correct application. There are 2 options. 1, the application for original contractor's license, and 2, the application for original contractor's license, examination waiver 7065. We got links to both at the bottom of the page.
The next step is determine your company name. Take a look at the application for examples. Some things to keep in mind. Your name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than what you are getting. For example, if you're going to apply for a C36 plumbing license, you cannot have a company of John Smith Plumbing, Construction, Heating, and Drywall. Corporate and LLC names must match exactly the name registered with California Secretary of State's office. The names of everyone on your Secretary of State Statement of Information must be listed on your CSLB application. You can also use what is called a DBA, which stands for Doing Business As. The main thing to remember here is the DBA name cannot be misleading, and you must use that name in all advertising and on all your contracts. Next, you'll want to get together certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver. Feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Next, be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualifications. Also, your application may be expedited through our Military Application Assistance Program. We mentioned that a few minutes ago. There is a bonus link at the bottom of the screen for more information on that program. To participate, you must have an honorable discharge. Be sure to include a copy of your military DD 214 paperwork showing honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of items are basic but important. Proofread your application for any missing information. Make sure you have provided an answer to all necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date the application. Finally, determine if you need a special accommodation to take your exams. If so, complete a request form and submit it with your application. We'll talk about the use of translators a little later.
Next, let's take a closer look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for a criminal background check. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to CSLB depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, and all home improvement salespersons. If you are in California, you must submit fingerprints electronically with what's called live scan. You can get an updated list of live scan locations in California, broken down by county, on the Attorney General's website. We have a link here, so you can simply go to the Attorney General's website and search for live scan. You will also see we have a bonus link at the bottom of the screen to the fingerprint information page on our CSLB website. If you're out of state, it's going to be tough for you to get us your fingerprints. That's because you must submit hard copies of them the old-fashioned way. Those take anywhere between 3 and 6 months for the FBI and Department of Justice to process. So you might want to consider traveling to California to get your electronic live scan done here.
So what happens if you have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor. Also, if your conviction involves fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors CSLB also considers. They are the nature and severity of the crimes, the amount of time that has passed since a conviction, and any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions which occurred within 7 years of the application date. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we would look back for 3 years of the application date. That's unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only 1% of the total applications we get based on criminal convictions. You'll also note the bonus link to our fingerprint information page.
Okay, along with the education credits we talked about earlier, this next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop and the part of the application that causes the most headaches for applicants. It is how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years or 48 months of experience within the past 10 years in the classification for which you're applying. The experience must be at no less than a journeyman level or as a foreman, supervising employee, contractor, or owner builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified as opposed to a trainee and can perform trade without supervision, or one who has completed an apprenticeship program.
There's a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience, so feel free to use additional pages if needed, and simply attach them at the end of the work experience form. Use as many certifications of work experience form as you need to prove the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. Use a different form for each certifier. Be as accurate as possible. Make sure the person certifying your work describes the actual work you performed and the dates in which you performed them. We will now share some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate work experience. Do not copy and paste this information directly into your applications. These are just examples.
At the top of this chart is the classification and type of experience you're trying to demonstrate. The first example is journey person experience. The overall theme we'll keep repeating is the more specific the description, the better. Note, the work experience form should be completed by your certifier, someone who has knowledge and has observed your work experience for the classification you're applying for. That person does not have to be a licensed contractor.
Our first example is for the Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for journey person experience is to be specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work like this. Bob performed rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing, and electrical, interior, exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something generic like residential general building trades. For foreperson experience, the description must include some hands-on work and or supervisory work. Here's an example of the best type of description. Bob oversaw other staff at job sites performing rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior, exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, an unacceptable description would be something generic like residential general building trades. For supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at a supervisory level. An example is, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finish carpentry, concrete forms and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior, exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, unacceptable would be something like residential general building trades. For out-of-state experience, the description must include examples of work done that were out of state, military, on federal lands, or work for a government entity. Applicants can qualify as a journeyperson, foreperson, or supervising employee. A tip: be specific about your duties and employment circumstances.
Our next example is for the C27 Landscaping Contractor. First, for experience at the journeyman level. The best type of description your certifier would use would be: Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance, and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable explanation would be gardening, yard maintenance, and planting. For a C27 landscaping contractor, the best work experience description for a foreperson would be something like: Jane oversaw other staff at job site performing landscape construction, maintenance, and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable description again would be something like gardening, yard maintenance, and planting. For a C27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. The best description would be: as a construction lead on multiple projects, applicant supervised landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. Unacceptable here for the supervising employee would also be something like gardening, yard maintenance, and planting. Finally, for out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed you for general building contractors is required. Be sure to include examples of your out-of-state work, as well as work for the military, on federal lands, or for a government entity. Be sure to be specific when you describe your duties and employment circumstances.
By law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all the information provided on at least 3% of our applications. Our next 3 slides run down the acceptable documentation you can use to support your work experience in the event your application was selected and you were asked to provide additional documentation. The supporting documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You will only need to provide this information if requested by CSLB staff. On the lower right of the screen, you'll see a link to this publication on our website, along with additional information on experience documentation. If you look at the chart, you can see the first column is for documents you can use if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column is for documenting your experience if you've been self-employed. The third column is for documentation you will need if you are applying for a Class B general building contractor license and need to use owner-builder experience to meet the experience requirements. Here's the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, you can click on the link to view and print this publication. If you do not have this information readily available, you may want to begin to gather it now, just in case you're asked to provide it in the future. Remember, you're trying to demonstrate 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. CSLB staff may contact the certifier of experience or other parties to verify experience.
One other note, CSLB gets more than 1,000 applications each month, so our application processing staff has seen it all. They've got 2 pieces of advice. First, don't cut and paste from this presentation. Also, don't try to get around having to take a trade test by applying for multiple subcategories under the C27 Limited Specialty Classification. Okay, that is the content you'll need to fill out your application. Before getting it to CSLB, double check to make sure you did not miss anything. Be sure to sign and date it as well. And don't forget to include the all-important $450 application fee. You'll pay the initial license fee of $200 for a sole owner license or $350 for a non-sole owner license after you pass your exam or exams. Then put your application packet in the mail to CSLB or hand deliver to one of our public counters. We've got a bonus link at the bottom of the screen with our office locations.
We'll now go over the parts of the application. Section 1, the business name and address. Now that we have gone through the information you'll need to include, here's a closer look at the application so you can see where the information goes. Section 1 is where you'll list your business name. Remember, when selecting a business name, make sure that the name that you have selected is compatible with the classification and the entity that you're applying for and is not misleading. If your business is a corporation or LLC, you will need to make sure that the name you provided in this section matches exactly the business name registered with the Secretary of State. In line 2, you will indicate what classification you're applying for. The mailing address and phone number that you list on line 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's website once you're licensed. Section 2, the business entity. In Section 2, you will select your business entity. If you're applying for a corporation or LLC, you will need to provide your registration number provided to you by the Secretary of State. Make sure to pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying.
Section 3, qualifying individual, full legal name and address. In Section 3, you will list the qualifier's information. Remember, the qualifier is the person that meets the experience requirements and will be responsible for the direct supervision and control of construction operations. The qualifier will be the person taking the exams. On line 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of the new business owned by the qualifier. For example, if you were the only person that would be listed on the license, you would enter 100%. On line 7, you will need to indicate the position that will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements. You will need to make sure that you have listed all positions depending on the entity you have selected. You can find more information on this on pages 2 through 4 of the application instructions. Line 8 is where you will sign and date your application. Section 4, personnel full legal names and addresses. Section 4 is where you will list the personnel information for all remaining personnel that will be listed on the license. For example, if you are applying for a corporation, you will need to indicate who will be the responsible managing officer or employee, president, secretary, and treasurer. Again, more information can be found on page 4 of the application instructions. If you have more than 4 people on your license, you can make additional copies of this page and include it with your application. For corporations and LLCs, you will want to make sure that all personnel that are listed with the Secretary of State are listed in this section. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application in Section 4.
Section 5 is a series of yes and no questions, so we're not going to cover those here. Section 6, Qualifier Education, Apprenticeship, Licensure, and Military. You may be granted credit towards your 4-year experience requirement based on your education. Question 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certificate of completion. Get those sealed transcripts mailed to you and then include the sealed transcripts with your application packet. Do not have the program send transcripts directly to CSLB. You don't want to take the chance that we're not able to match them up with your application. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. This credit is not on a year-to-year basis, meaning if you have a 2-year college degree, you won't necessarily be granted 2 years of credit towards the experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. The 10-year time frame does not apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received out of the country. If your degree is in another language other than English, it must be translated and evaluated by an accredited evaluation service that does business within the United States. Now we'll move on to the certification of work experience. Part 1. Now we will discuss the certification of work experience. Part 1 will be filled out by you, the applicant. Here you will list the information about your employer where you gained your experience. If you are self-employed when you gain the experience, please make sure to check the box in line 2. If you are applying for a B general construction license and will be using experience obtained while working on your own property, make sure to mark the box in line 4 and complete an owner-builder construction project experience form that we will discuss later. Part 2 will be filled out by your certifier. In this section, the certifier must include the dates in which you obtained the experience. They must also select if you are working on a part-time or full-time basis. Keep in mind, if you are working part-time, you will receive 50% credit for that time, which means you will need to provide 8 years of experience within the last 10 years to meet the 4-year requirement. On line 6, your certifier will need to list the duties you performed or supervised that are considered critical for the classification you're applying for. You can read a description of critical duties in CSLB's Description of Classifications booklet available on our website. Do not copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers critical duties for each classification. Your certifier should complete this section in their own words and be as complete and accurate as possible. The final part of the work experience certification is also to be completed by your certifier. They need to list their relationship to you and provide their contact information. Lastly, they will need to sign and date the certification.
Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience, Part 1 of 3. The next form we will discuss is the Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience form. This form only needs to be completed if you are applying for the B General Construction License and you want to receive experience credit for working on projects on your own property. A separate form is required for each project on the property. The experience must be verifiable through building permits, final inspections, and other documentation. You will need to list the building permit number on line 6. On line 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. Part 2 of 3, in boxes 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the project. Part 3 of 3, question 11 asks if other general construction contractors worked on the project and what trades they performed. Remember, this information should be as complete and accurate as possible. With all the information we just covered, this is a good time to remind you that we are recording this workshop. We'll post the video to our YouTube channel so that you can go back and rewatch it in case there's anything you missed. Okay, so we've got your application submitted. How do you check the status of that application? Here are two resources. First is the Secure Checked. You'll need your application fee number and contractor PIN number to get an update. We'll send you that information after we receive, cashier, and key into the system your completed application. The second way to check is to look online at our processing times. Each week, we update our website with the date we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So look for the date being worked on and know that if the date shown is after the date we likely received your paperwork, it's likely we're busy working on your application. As you can imagine, CSLB receives hundreds, if not thousands of documents every day, and we process them in the order that they have been received. So be sure to take the extra time getting the application right so we don't have to send it back to you to correct and then have to start processing your application again. When your application has been posted, CSLB will send you a notice to appear for examination and a study guide. You should get your exam notice at least 3 weeks prior to your exam date. CSLB has many authorized test centers throughout California and encourages candidates to take their exams at the nearest test center.
If you are an applicant whose first language isn't English and you don't feel confident taking your exams in English, we do allow you to use a translator. The translator, who you provide, simply reads you the exam questions. Question 16 on the application asks if you need to use a translator to complete the examination. The translator must be approved by CSLB in advance. You cannot just show up on the day of your examination to the test center with someone to translate the exam for you. When you get an exam date, make sure you do not miss it. If you fail to appear for your exam, you will have to pay a non-refundable $100 fee to reschedule. That fee may be waived once with documented evidence of a medical emergency or other circumstance beyond your control. Also, we have study guides available for each of our exams. Included in each study guide, you will find a list of sections and topics covered by the exam. They also include sample questions, how each section of the exam is weighted, and recommended resources that you can use to prepare for the examination. These study guides are available online on our website. There's a bonus link to them on the bottom of the screen.
Here's a quick look at two of those study exams. The first is the Law and Business exam, which all qualifiers must take, no matter which license classification, including the D-Series limited classes. You can see the guide contains a breakdown of examination topics, some test strategies, sample questions, and resources that were used to help create that exam. You will see the same format on the B General Building Study Guide. We would recommend that you really pay attention to the exam content here, especially how we have it broken down, what percentage of questions there will be on each of the 5 topics on the exam. On the lower right of both of these 2 slides, you will see bonus links to the actual study guide, as well as a link to the complete list of study guides.
We do have COVID-19 procedures in place for applicants on test day. These procedures could change, so check the CSLB website before your test date. Plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam. Give yourself extra time to get checked in. Applicants are recommended to wear a face mask or other face covering. Check and follow your local COVID-19 mask guidance before arriving for your test. If you appear ill, you will have to reschedule your exam for at least 5 days later at no additional charge. And you will not be admitted into the test center more than 15 minutes prior to your exam time. We've also produced a short What to Expect on Test Day video that you can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is at the bottom of your screen.
You'll take your exam on a touchscreen computer. Before starting, you'll see an on-screen tutorial that will take you through the process. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You'll also see a space on each question where you can, if you want, submit a comment about that question. You'll get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or that may reduce the amount of time that you get to complete your exam. You'll get your results at the end of the exam. If you do not pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the exam. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within the 18-month period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $100 rescheduling fee each time.
After you pass your exam, what happens next? First, you'll need to pay your initial license fee, $200 for a sole owner license and $350 for a non-sole owner license that will be good for 2 years. You'll also need to complete an online asbestos open book exam. Plus, you'll need to file your required $15,000 contractor's surety bond and possibly some other bonds depending on what type of business entity you'll have. And you'll need to get your required insurance policy. If you've got employees, you'll need to get workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance. See our website for more information. Please note that your insurance company or broker can submit your insurance information to CSLB directly on our website. If you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption with CSLB. You can do that online as well.
In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office or chief place of business. Carry your pocket card with you, especially in situations where you're going to solicit business, talk to potential customers, or sign contracts. We encourage consumers to ask to see your pocket license. If you're going to have salespeople working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It'll expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar, in your phone, anywhere you need so you won't forget it. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to renew your license on time.
Here are a couple other important deadlines to keep in mind. First, notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or change your business address. Your renewal notice will be sent to the address of record that we've got on file. If you're not at that address anymore, you're probably not going to get it. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to personnel on your license, especially when it involves the qualifier of the license.
Once you get your license and get to work, you might want to hire someone as a salesperson to solicit, sell, and negotiate home improvement contracts on your behalf outside of your place of business. These people are called Home Improvement Salesperson, or HIS. Without an HIS, the official personnel of record on a license are the only ones who can sell, solicit, negotiate, or execute a contract. That includes individual contractors, licensed qualifiers, partners, corporate officers, and LLC responsible managing officers, members, managers, or employees. An HIS can work for more than one contractor. The licensee must inform CSLB in writing when they either associate or disassociate an HIS with their license.
There are a couple of exceptions to note. First are those who only schedule appointments for the contractor or registered HIS, and bona fide service and repair people. These are the folks you call out for repairs, including for things like air conditioning, heating, and plumbing. But those service and repair people are limited to the work that was initially requested by the buyer or homeowner. For example, if your AC goes out and you call an HVAC company to come out, the service person does not have to be a registered salesperson. But if they go beyond the repair itself and sell you a new HVAC system, they would have to be a registered HIS. Also, don't employ an unregistered salesperson. That subjects you to administrative discipline, and the salesperson might get a citation or possibly even a criminal misdemeanor. We've got bonus links at the bottom of the page if you want to look at the actual code sections of law. Ready for questions at this point? Our first question, does a structural engineering master's and bachelor's degree count towards the 3 years of qualifying educational experience from any field of engineering that is directly related to the classification for which the application is being made? Where the intended classification is B, and I'm guessing or B2, how many years would that qualify? Once again, we don't do a structural engineering. We have civil engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and then other engineering. For the B, it would count if it is civil engineering degree, it would count for the B classification for the full 3 years. The B2 is a non-structural classification, so that would get you 24 months, and that's speaking generically. So we would need to see the actual degree first before they would assign actual value to the degree. Also, you mentioned that there were 2 degrees. They will take one of the degrees, whichever one has the most credit towards your experience. So they can't stack the 2 of them together. They will take whichever one provides the most for the classification that you're going for and assign that credit to it. Are specialty contractors limited to 1 Class C license? No, you can have as within certain requirements. A contractor can have several licenses. Sole owners can have as many sole owner licenses as they want, or they can add extra classifications to 1 license. So some people like to have 1 license of which they have multiple classifications on their B, C10 electrical, C33 painting, and those are all under 1 license. Some people do like to keep them separate, and so they'll have 1 sole owner license for their B contracting. They'll have 1 sole owner license for their C10. And so either way. Now, when you get into corporations, then it matters who is the qualifier. Only 1 person can only qualify up to 3 licenses at one time within a year period. But there are restrictions on that as well. If you're looking to be a qualifier on multiple licenses for people, then you'll want to contact us for the restrictions on being the same qualifier on multiple licenses.
Hello, I'm still currently taking college course for business. I want to start a business, but I won't be the one working. I have family members who are journeymen and a supervisor skilled level worker. I assume I do not qualify. So if you do not have hands-on experience, you would not qualify. However, your family members, according to what is stated in your question, could possibly be a qualifier for a certain classification. However, application would have to be turned in, and we would have to, CSLB would have to review the experience to see if they would go forward with the classification that they've applied for.
To install a solar system, do I require electrical and solar license C10 and C46, or do I need any other license to provide solar system installations. By solar systems, I'm guessing you're referring to photovoltaic electrical systems. If that is the case, either of those two classifications currently can install solar systems, and that's where it gets a little tricky when we're referring to systems. So both the C10 and the C46 can install the systems. However, if it requires panel upgrades or upgrades to the electrical system in a house or commercial property, then obviously you're going to need the C10, but it is not required to have both if you're just installing the rooftop solar system itself and connecting it to existing paneling and everything. You can do it with a C10 or you can do it with a C46.
What are the educational and experience requirements for the new residential remodeling B2 licensing? So educational is completely optional. If somebody has education, you're welcome to submit it and we can review it and make a determination whether or not you would receive credit for that schooling. As far as experience goes, for the B2, you need 3 unrelated trades. We do not count structural framing, rough framing, any kind of towards that. It does have to exclude that. You can't install a new HVAC system. Still the same thing as a B. You can't do well drilling. You can't do fire. What's it called? Fire protection. But you do have to have 3 unrelated trades to qualify for the B2 classification.
If I get the B2 license and work with it for a certain time with that license, would that time count towards the 4-year requirements for the Class B general building contractor's license? For the additional trades part of it, yes. So the B2 allows you to do residential remodeling, but it is non-structural. Doing the B2 license is not going to gain you any credit towards the structural framing aspect of a B general building contractor's license. It would enable you to have credit towards the additional trades required for the B2, but you're still going to need to have 4 years of framing or rough carpentry to do, which you can't get under the B2 license.
How do individual college class credits translate generally to months of credit? For example, 1 construction management class equals 1 month credit. So unfortunately, we can't divulge that. Again, you're always welcome to submit your transcripts, whether you've obtained a degree or you've just taken classes and you're in the process of getting a degree, and we can have it looked at for potential credit towards your classification. However, we can't divulge how much credit 1 class would give you.
We'd need to see your transcript. Yeah. So that one, if it allowed any credit at all, that's going to be on a case-by-case basis, and we'd need to see your transcripts, but it would be minimal education value at best. Next question, yes, PV systems. So yes, referring back to the C10, C46, currently, as I said, right at this moment, a C10 and a C46 can install PV systems, one or the other. Naturally, if you have both, you're covered as well. But once again, they are talking about whether that will change in the future. And once again, if it requires any change to the electrical system at all, obviously you're going to need the C10.
So how is the owner builder experience added up to determine an equivalent amount of years of experience to count towards the 4-year requirement? For example, a remodel that takes 6 months, does that count as 6 months of experience or some different amount? So again, unfortunately, we can't divulge the formula that is calculated on our end, on CSLB's end, when it comes to owner builder experience. It is not 6 months for 6 months. However, the owner builder experience does have to show that you, the owner builder, is doing the work, that you did not hire contractors to do a substantiated amount of the work that you're claiming to do, because we do need to see that you're performing it, and therefore you're the one who's gaining the experience and you're the one who's applying for the license.
The generalization on that. So somebody may be remodeling their house and they may take a year to do it. Once all of the proper documents are sent in, the permits, the scope of the project, the final reports reviewed, the deputy will look at that. And in general, what they do is they look at the amount of work performed over the square footage and everything, and put that to what a normal contractor would take to perform that work, and give that amount of credit for it. So while you may have been working on it part-time and it took you a year to complete that, had you hired a contractor to do that, it may have been completed in 2 months. And so the deputy will look at the scope of the work and what was being performed and what a reasonable contractor would have taken to perform that work. And that's usually how they base the amount of time granted on that. Would working with a construction management company provide any work experience credit if the supervisor was general? So if you're working for somebody who is licensed, yes, the work that you're performing under a licensed contractor, yes, that will count towards your experience. When you say construction management company, that can sometimes be someone who is a developer or something like that, but they actually hire in all of the work done. That wouldn't count because you were working for the management company and not working under the construction person. But if you're working for someone licensed, yes, the work you're performing under that licensed general contractor, depending on the trades that you perform, that will count towards experience.
Well, a 6-month long owner builder project generally translates directly to 6 months of qualifying credit, assuming it's a large remodel project. So again, it's kind of similar to the question earlier, not necessarily. So owner builder has a different calculation. Again, we can't divulge our formulas. However, what our deputy will look at is the completed projects, the permits, the finalized inspection reports from the city or the county that the permits were pulled at, and then make a determination from there. But it isn't tit for tat where 6 months work, 6 months credit when it's owner builder.
For D6 license, specialty C61 specialty license, does trade school 1 year and journeyman qualify for it? So it would depend on the trade school and what you'd taken. That would be kind of like a transcript that you would need to send in, and the deputy would review that transcript to see if any of that would apply to the classification that you're going for. Journeyman experience will qualify as long as the journeyman experience applies to the D6 classification. So trade school would need to be evaluated case by case. Journeyman will count towards experience as long as it's within the classification that you're applying for.
Can you please give me 3 examples of unrelated trades for the B2 that would qualify? And how many years experience is required in those trades? So as a whole, Your experience should be 48 months of experience in the classification that you're going to apply for. So for the B2, 3 unrelated trades could possibly be painting, drywall, cabinetry. It could be gardening, plumbing. They just have to be 3 unrelated trades.
For the B2 license, I'm not sure if that's a continuation.
I think it was just a continuation.
So yeah, as she stated, basically for the unrelated trades, it is most trades other than the C5 structural framing, rough carpentry. That doesn't apply to the B2 because it's just for non-structural remodeling. But yes, minor electrical, minor plumbing, drywall, painting, all of those other trades will apply for the B2.
If I receive 3 years credit for my civil engineering BS degree, I would not be allowed to receive additional credit for individual, say, construction management classes, right? So that is correct. 1 degree, 1 credit. There is nothing, you cannot stack them. Whichever one would give you the most credit is what we would grant you.
Does having a PE license, registered professional engineer, count towards B contractor experience? I didn't see it listed in the presentation or on the website. No, the professional engineer doesn't count towards the B contractor's license. Usually that's the designers, design, blueprint construction, overseeing of a project, all of that won't count towards the B contractor experience. We're looking for hands-on journeyman level or apprenticeship towards the B. And once again, the B is a multi-trade, so it's going to be experience on projects where a structure was built, as well as 2 additional trades.
So my application payment was cashiered. Next is wait for my application fee number and PIN to check status. That is correct. So right now we just ended our fiscal year. It ends on June 30th and the new fiscal year starts on July 1st. So there has been a delay in processing, cashiering, and getting the applications to where they need to go. If you would like someone to check on it, you could email licensing@cslb.ca.gov. You will need to give them the full business name that was listed on the application, because your name and personal information might not be inputted as of yet.
I finished a 2-year program and hold my certificate of carpentry and currently taking the plumbing 2-year certificate. When I finish, would I get any time of experience for the plumbing certificate? Once again, any educational type experience is also based on the classification that you're going for. When you say certificate of carpentry or certificate of plumbing, we're looking for an apprenticeship, or if it's through a school, we're looking for the transcripts, and then those would be evaluated. If it's not an actual degree like a master's, a bachelor, associate, then any actual trade school certificates or things like that would be evaluated on a 1-by-1 basis for by the experienced deputy. If you are applying for 2 separate classifications, there's a chance that the 2-year carpentry one would apply to either the B classification or a C5 classification, possibly a C6 classification. The plumbing would apply to a C36, or in some cases, partly also to a C20 or something. But once again, those are looked at as, unless it's an official apprenticeship, it's looked as a transcript. So they would take one of the other that would gain you the most experience for the classification that you're going for.
How often are the processing times updated? Weekly? So that is correct. So if Monday happens to be a holiday, like it is coming up, then it would be Tuesday. But generally, every Monday, processing times are updated and they are in real time on our website.
If it's the first time I've submitted an application and I'm looking for the date on processing time under original applications unit, exam applications, that's correct. So if this is your first application for a license, you'd be looking for the original application unit exam. That should be the class or the heading that your application would be in.
Okay, with all the info that we provided to the board, are they able or would check our prior employers to see if we have more experiences or companies that we worked before? Just wondering because I have worked in another construction company that I didn't write any experience gained in there. So if the board doesn't know who you worked for, we can't check that. Whatever you submit on your application as far as your work experience goes, if you don't know, if you don't tell us, we don't know. So if you just list ABC company, that's what we're going to look at. You know, we're not going to look at XYZ if you didn't tell us.
And each one of those has to be signed by someone who has firsthand knowledge of that work. So until we have that on a certification of work experience signed by somebody who says, I have firsthand knowledge of these trades being performed between these two timeframes, we're not going to, we'll have no idea what other experience you have, just what you send to us. And Mark says, thank you, as always, CSLB, give these two a raise. Actually, we just do this so that hopefully we can speed your process and make your process to get your license and get out there and have your own business as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Do I need 4 years of experience, journey person, foreman, etc., to take the exam or to enroll in the license school? So CSLB is not affiliated with any of the licensing schools. If you do go that route, just be aware that they're not affiliated with the state, they're not affiliated with CSLB, so it is at your own risk. As far as experience, you do have to have 4 years. Everyone has to have 4 years experience in the classification that they're applying for. We do want journey level because we want to know that you do not have to be supervised, that you know your trade, you're going out there, you're performing it, you know, to the best of your ability, and the work is done correctly.
Once a year, my town hosts experience learning related to construction. Would attending this small training course help get licensed? You know, just as this workshop, anything that's out there that is giving you more information and makes the process clearer to you. I mean, it's not going to count towards experience or anything, but this is one thing we do here at the board, providing this workshop, but there are other avenues out there to get you information about the process and to hopefully make it a little clearer in the process and help you in your goal of getting licensed. So I would say, I would encourage anybody, if they had other questions or anything, to reach out to any avenues that they have to help them. But once again, attending other seminars or things like that won't count towards experience or anything, but it might make the process clearer for you.
So I just want to confirm, you said a civil engineering BS degree typically translates to the full 3 years max qualifying experience for a Class B license, correct? That is correct.
But once again, it will be evaluated once you send it in. But yes, that is the typical evaluation on civil engineering going for a B classification. The GC CSLB reference book is over 1,100 pages. Are there more specific studying tools to help get a passing score? Is everything in that book free game for the exam? So the book is just one resource. If you go on our website and look at the study guides, they'll give you some examples of questions for each classification and everything. Also, down at the very end, it will also reference some of the books that were used or tools that were used to create that exam. So they don't just use our reference, the CSLB reference book or law book. That will cover pretty much anything in the law portion of the test for the most part. But as far as the trade exams, those are often built from other resource materials, which are listed on those study guides.
Whereas the classification that you apply for, that's specific to the class. The law is general for everyone. So it's not specific to a classification. It's just in general to the state laws. What if you were out of state with regards to Q2, license number of company where experience was gained? How is this recorded if you don't need a license number in that state? So I'm
Question, is that line 2 on the certification work experience where it requests the license number? So yes. So if you worked for a licensed contractor in another state and that state required them to have a certain type of license, obviously you'd want to fill that in. They'll use that to track down, what trades were able to be performed. If the state that you're in didn't require a license, you'd still list the name of the company that you were working for or the contractor that you were working for. You can leave the license number blank. And then obviously your certifier is going to put the trades on your certification of work experience. They'll evaluate, they'll look up that state's requirements for contractors just to see that, that you can perform all those trades in that state without being licensed, and that they reference the same types of trades that classifications we have here.
not a question, just wanted to say thank you. This was extremely helpful. For the BT, do I need 4 years hands-on experience? Yes, you do. For every classification, it is required that you have 4 years experience. Again, you could possibly supplement some of that experience with education. However, with the B2, 3 unrelated trades, 4 years minimum experience.
All right, we still have a little bit of time. Anybody else have any other questions? All right, let's see. I am currently sole owner. My experience in my profession comes from all previous employment since 2018. Been working for self. What would I put down for my experience? So what must I submit for work experience? I do have my business license for the city. So business license is different than a contractor's license. You can have a business license with no experience at all. So you say you're currently a sole owner. It would depend on what classification you have as that sole owner, and what work you've been doing and what classification you're looking to go for, or if you're looking to add to it. For your experience, you want to put, your certifier is going to put down the trades that you have performed directly related to the classification that you're applying for. So if you're applying for a C33 painting, you may have done a ton of other trades, we're only interested in showing that you have at least 4 years of experience in the last 10 years related to painting. So that's what your certifier would put down, but it's related to the classification you're going for and then the trades you have performed.
Are you able to take the exams online if you're out of state, or do you physically need to take them in California? Unfortunately, you physically need to take them in California. We do have 20 test sites throughout California. So depending on where you would fly into, then that would be where you would be assigned to take the exams.
What if you have experience doing family and friends home remodels? Would this count as experience? Once again, it depends on the classification you're going for. When you say remodels, I'm guessing maybe a B2. Once again, it's a matter of having someone who has first-hand knowledge of the experience that you're performing. If you're doing it for family and friends, even though that may be small projects, you're just going to need a certification of work experience for each form of experience that someone can speak to your firsthand knowledge. So if it was for a friend, you may have to have a lot of certifications of work experience that add up to your time frame. But once again, you need 4 years of experience in the B2 for 3 trades. So projects requiring 3 trades and the time frame, and someone that has firsthand knowledge of that being performed. Self-taught is fine. Once again, it's about what you have actually performed at journeyman level. So there are many people who have self-taught them projects and experience. You know, there are many ways to list your experience. It's just what you have performed at a journeyman level and someone who can certify that they have firsthand knowledge of you performing that work.
Can you schedule the law test and the classification test on the same day? Yes, you can. So once your application is deemed acceptable, you will receive a notification from our affiliates to schedule your testing, and it can be done in the same day. You know, we still have some time for some questions if you'd like. If we didn't get your question, if you didn't want to put a question out there, you can always email the licensing email again, which is licensing@cslb.ca.gov. And you can give them as much information as you need, and they can go ahead and answer that or forward it to the correct unit who could be able to give you some answers. Can you have your fingerprints taken the same day as your test? So once your application is posted, that's when your live scan or your hard print card will be sent out to you. So depending upon the day that your exams are scheduled, if you have that on your person, yes, you can. So in California, you would do live scan, you would go to a facility where they can electronically do your fingerprints. If you were out of state and let's say you didn't have it with you when you came to take your exams, you would have to do it at your local PD or find out where they would be able to do your prints so that you can send those in to us. They do take a little bit longer than the live scan, but you are more than welcome to do it out of state, you know, if you're unavailable to do it here in California.
Wi-Fi. All right, so I have a little bit of time for any other questions. Let's see. So you would be able to do the live scan a day before the scheduled test, or is there more time needed after the live scan? Once again, it depends on, so once your application is posted, they're going to mail out a live scan packet, which is a form that you take with you to have the live scan done. So most of the time, you would have received that packet before your testing date would come up, because there's usually at least a 3-week gap between when your application is posted and when you're going into testing. So most of the time you would have that, but you do need to have that form before you can have the live scan done. For B2, would we fill out the original contractor's license, or is there a different app? No, all classifications, the different apps are for different reasons. So the original contractor's license is for somebody who has never had a license before, or is getting a brand new license in a different classification than they've held before. The original contractor's license waiver is for somebody who may have already gone through the testing process on a previous app, or has already held the classification before and they're getting another license in that same classification, or becoming the qualifier on a new license coming up. So one is for people who will be going through the testing process. The waiver application is for people who would not be going through the waiver or the exam process.
Just to be clear too, on the live scan, you have to have your live scan documentation with you. You cannot say, hey, I'm applying for a contractor's license. They actually need that because it has information that affiliates you with your application and the board. Do we have any more questions?
So I need to take it when I get the test, like a copy. Correct. You need to have the live scan form that we will mail out to you in order to complete the fingerprinting process.
And you don't do it at your testing site. You actually go to like a UPS store, I think maybe even mailbox, etc., where they actually do live scan. On your form, there should be a link where you can check and see which ones are like closest to the area that you're going to be in, so you know where to go.
Also, within our presentation, it tells you where you can go to the, I believe it's the Attorney General's website, and type in live scan, and it will give you a list of all locations that you can process the live scan. But you do need that copy of it that we mail out to you to take with you. All right, anybody else has any other questions? I am out-of-state contractor, so what is the rough time frame from after the live scan until you can take the test? The tests aren't required, the live scan's not required for you to take the test. The tests will be assigned to you once you've submitted an application and that application is deemed complete and acceptable. They'll post the application and then refer you over to the testing department. Typically, tests are assigned about 3 weeks out from when your application is posted. In that same time, you'll be receiving your live scan form, but one is not contingent upon the other. You can get your live scan performed at any time once you receive that form. And it's not dependent, you don't have to complete that until you take your test. Those are two independent things. You do have to complete your live scan before the license will be issued, but it's not required to be completed before you take your tests.
Do I need to mail the copy of the live scan? So we do recommend it's a triplicate form. So one gets kept at the live scan facility. You should keep one and you should mail in a copy to us also when it's done within California. Obviously, the whole thing's being sent to us when it's the hard scan when you're out of state.
Many places do submit them electronically, but it's always good to mail in a copy as well. We'll wait for a few more minutes just in case anybody else has any questions. My school told me not to do anything with the live scan. No mail, anything. I'm kind of confused. Well, I'm not sure what they told you about not doing anything with the live scan. The live scan form is for you to take to a live scan location and begin the fingerprinting process. So that's what that form is for. If you don't complete that process, your license will never be issued. We have to have a full set of fingerprint background check on everybody who applies for a license. I'm not sure if they told you to wait until, you pass your exams or suggested you wait until you pass your exams. You can certainly do that, but you don't have to. As soon as you have your live scan form, you can have your live scan completed, or you can wait until you have your test done and complete it then. You'll just have to do it before any license will be issued.
So all applicants need to take the asbestos testing. So I do assume that you're talking about the open book asbestos. And yes, if you've never tested with CSLB, you don't hold a license, you don't hold another classification, then yes, you are required to do the open book asbestos testing. It's online. Once you finish it, it does submit over to us and it will be recorded on your application so that we can move forward from there. But it is required of everyone who has not already taken it. Who is a qualifier?
And it is different than the asbestos classification or the asbestos certificate application. This is just a small general asbestos online test that is taken online separately from any application. All right, we'll wait a few more minutes for anybody with any final questions. One last check for any final questions, and then we'll wrap up for today. All right, we'll call that our presentation for today. That's all the time we have for our workshop today. Thank you for all your questions. If you have any other questions about your application, we encourage you to drop an email to our licensing division. That address is licensing@cslb.ca.gov. That's licensing@cslb.ca.gov. If at some point you need to reschedule your exam, you can get that process started by dropping an email to exams@cslb.ca.gov. We've also put together a list of available resources for women considering a career in construction. If you haven't already, be sure to download this presentation to get them. You can download the presentation on a green banner on the top of our homepage at www.cslb.ca.gov. If you're watching the archive video of this workshop on our YouTube page, you'll find a link to the presentation down below.
We welcome your comments or topics for future webcasts. Just drop us an email at social@cslb.ca.gov. Special thanks to our licensing division and public affairs office for their help on this workshop. The Get Licensed to Build workshop is a copyrighted production of the California Contractor State License Board. Thanks for watching.